Hello folks, I hope that you're having just a great day today, keeping yourself safe in our COVID world. Hey, today I want to take a look at Douglas Adams and specifically his best-selling book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one of the seminal classics of science fiction, published in 1979. It put Douglas Adams on the map in a major way. So today I want to take a look at him, take a look at this book, and do a review for you. And kind of what my take is on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, sometimes just referred to as Hitchhiker's Guide, which I'll do for the rest of this video, because the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is obviously a really long title to speak about at length. So we'll take a look at that. Douglas Adams was a writer for the BBC. He was a British writer in the 70s. He wrote some serials for Doctor Who. He was actually the script editor for Doctor Who for a season. He did a couple of serials there called Pirate Planet, Shada, which was canceled for various reasons due to labor-related issues that were happening in the BBC at that time and in the country. And also he was partly responsible for City of Death, which was written when he was the script editor for a season for Doctor Who. He also, it was during the Tom Baker era. He wasn't a very good script editor. He's a better writer than he is an editor. As an editor, he doesn't have the skill to say no to something. He thinks it's a good idea. It doesn't matter whether or not it's something that should be allowed or whether it's filmable. If it works, it could be great on the page, but it's not filmable. And that's a script editor's point, is to edit these ideas that edit, and he was horrible at it. He was a great writer, not a good editor. I also think that was Stephen Moffat's issue with Doctor Who 2, just as an aside. He was a great writer, but he wasn't a good editor. He's just not somebody who can say no to people's ideas, or his own ideas. That there was nobody to say no to his ideas when he had bigger ideas than the script would allow. So that was, by the way, I think Stephen Moffat fell into the Douglas Adams issue, not being a good editor, just being a good writer. Nothing wrong with being a good writer. Both of them are great. Douglas Adams, though, we're going to take a look at his quintessential work. This has been broadcast in a lot of different media. It was on a radio at the time, on BBC Radio. It was on TV. There's a TV series of this that was on BBC at the same time, roughly, as the radio show and the book. It's also been movies. It's been in other places. It was a movie that was made some changes to the base storyline, but still tried to have a sort of, starring Martin Freeman as Arthur Ford. And so we'll take a look, not Arthur Ford, at Arthur. Sorry, Ford Prefect is his friend, but Arthur. And so, and we'll take a look at this story now. Basically what happens in the story is we're going to open up with in a chapter. We're set in one of the suburbs of London. We have our main character, Arthur, who's our primary point of view character for the novel, although there will be the occasional chapter that's told from somebody else's viewpoint, or a section of a chapter, like Zaphod Beeblebrox will have at least 2 or 3 chapters that are dedicated to him and his point of view. But what you'll see generally is that he is waking up, and unfortunately his house is being slated for being destroyed in order to allow a brand new bypass that's being built in, and the people there that were destroying his house said, hey, these plans have been available at town hall in city center and so forth. They were available, so you shouldn't be surprised that we're coming and destroying your house now. You had an opportunity to, protest when they were made public 6 months ago, right, and so on and so forth. And it's sort of this anti-bureaucratic nod that Adams is doing there. And it's going to be the introductory chapter. And then you're going to find out that a very similar thing is happening to Earth. Earth, who doesn't even know that aliens exist, has been scheduled for destruction by a galactic bypass. And on the same day that Arthur's house is destroyed to make way for a bypass in the UK, Earth is destroyed to make way for a galactic bypass by the galactic powers that be. And for the same excuses they'll give too. Hey, this stuff was posted over Beetlejuice. It's not my fault if you're not getting out the Beetlejuice, right? And so forth. And there will be a fleet called the Vogon that will come in to destroy the Earth and make way for the bypass. And the Vogons will then head on out. Off on their own. Meanwhile, we're going to find out that one of our friends, Arthur, and probably the second primary part of this story, Ford Prefect, is actually an alien from Beetlejuice. He works for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, researching different topics. Earth has a section in the book And the entire description for Earth is harmless. After Ford is stranded on the planet for 15 years, Ford Prefect writes in another section, which will now be called Mostly Harmless, is the description of Earth in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But he'll be on Earth, he'll be best friends with Arthur, and he'll save Arthur using a hitchhiker's guide that he has an electronic thumb that he will use to hitch a ride with the Vogons, and will then head on out with our tier hero in tow. And so then Arthur, and along with a cast of characters, including Trillian, Zaphod Beaglebrox, the former president of the United States of the Galaxy, and Ford Prefect, and a couple of others here and there, like Marvin a robot, will join up a force, and they'll start scouring the universe and finding impossibilities in the universe, or either, well, not impossibilities per se, but highly irregular regularities that are the probabilities that are hugely improbable. And they'll find many improbability things that are going to happen as a result of the story. So that's kind of what's happening in the story itself. I got taking a couple chapters in to set the stage. Now, this story does have, I think, two different ways that you can read it. It is an incredibly funny novel. I've read it 3 times now. Each time I've read it in a day. It's like 4 hours long. You can easily, it's super fast. My copy of it here is 175 pages long. I reread it a couple of days ago. Read it in a day. It's super fast. In a work day, I read it on a Wednesday. And I'm recording this on a Saturday, so just a couple of days later. It is a very quick read, and it has a lot of humor into it, a lot of meta humor that's into it too. It's this lighthearted sort of take on sort of typical science fiction, and you can just read it as a funny sort of science fiction spoof, and you'll enjoy it. But it also takes the genre seriously. And when I say that it takes the genre seriously, its descriptions of the world, of the universe, there's a lot of world building, probably more world building than a typical 175-page science fiction novel would have. Obviously, part of that's for humor, but a lot of that's actually really done from a science fiction lens. It has a lot of things that are happening that are done from a science fiction lens. And so you can take this as a serious sort of a work that takes itself seriously, but not too seriously, if that makes itself. And it's also something that Adams is very strong with, is that he's very good at bringing together details, crafting an overall story, outlining something specifically. And you will see that in this novel, although to a lesser degree than its sequels. You'll also see that in the Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. You'll see that in his Doctor Who stuff. You'll see that, for example, in The City of Death, which has a lot of these sort of things that happen will be recurring again and again and again, and in time, as well as being a hilarious overall sort of a show. And I think that City of Death is very much like this. It's funny, it's hilarious at times, and yet at the same time, it takes itself seriously. It really connects the dots. It's a very strong piece of science fiction. And this can be appreciated from 2 angles, if you will, the humorous side and the science fiction side. Now, while I am giving it all the great things that it deserves, it's a classic, put Douglas Adams on the map, I do have an issue with the story overall as a novel. And that's that our main character has not changed from the first couple of chapters when he's introduced to space and he's just trying to survive, and to the last couple of chapters when he's on a different planet and he's just trying to survive. He has not grown, he has not developed, he has not learned to embrace the galactic nature of life, of his new living, of his new world. He hasn't really changed. He's read a few articles here and there out of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but that's really it. And sometimes that's done for humorous reasons, as you learn about the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster and things like that, which is the best mixed drink in the universe, which was created by Zaphod Beaglebrox, one of the main characters of the story. And you'll get an idea, get a feel for the story and the characters and so forth. And other characters will change. Zaphod Beaglebrox changes. Trillian changes more, who's a female character from Earth. She changes arguably more than Arthur does over the course of the novel. Ford Prefect does to a lesser degree, but he still has some changes. But Arthur, the main character, doesn't really overcome any obstacles. He doesn't change as a result of his experiences. He isn't molded into a new person. He's still kind of the same person. Near the end of the novel, Zaphod Beaglebrox makes a joke about the character and about how how the character, and he says, the character's dealing with somebody trying to take his brain and replacing it with a robotic brain. And Zaphod Beeblebrock says, as long as it's programmed to say, I don't know, and what, we won't know the difference. To which, of course, our main character says, what? As a questioning person, to show that he has not changed from the first couple of chapters, where he's basically, his response to the bypass initially, as well as the galactic bypass, as well as to the things that are happening, is basically just a what or an I don't know, and it's still the same thing at the end, near the end of the novel. The character doesn't change. It's a joke. So at least Adams is in on the joke, right? But that's also my main argument, is that if you're reading this for the growth and development of your main character, that's not happening in this novel, just as a side note. But there you are. Have you read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, or any of its other forms in video, on TV, on the movies, with the radio show? Have you read the novel? What did you think of it? Did you like it or dislike it? Did you agree or disagree with my review in any major ways? I'm happy to talk with you more about them at length in the comments below. And then I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and watching my video. We all have so many things happening in our lives, so the fact that you spent this time with me is very humbling. And finally, hey, if you like this review, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. There's going to be so many more of these to follow, where I do reviews of classic and science fiction like this one, fantasy, and horror. Once again, thanks for your time and have a great day.